What is up, my fellow citizens? It's Gio here, and today we're going to finally hop into what it's like to be a civilian passenger transport. So that includes stuff like the 890 or the newly released Starliner, or maybe even your Constellation Phoenix if you were lucky enough to get one of those also. So let's go ahead and hop into this long ass post and see what it's like. Star Citizen Civilian Passenger Transport is one of the more unique occupational roles that a player can assume. As with mining, discovery, repair, rescue, and scientific research, the focus is not on combat. Instead, passenger transport is about competing with other players and characters in much more subtle and diverse ways for the right to provide a critical and necessary support service for the proper operation of the entire galactic ecosystem. Whereas other endeavors demand a player's attention at key points throughout a mission, with passenger transport, the journey is the mission. Starting a career. Passenger transport is a heavily regulated activity, and the first step in an aspiring transporter's career is to obtain a license at the government offices of the various landing zones from which you wish to pick up or deliver passengers. If your criminal record is clear and you have no prior experience in the field, this is a quick and painless process. A recurring fee for the license is required, with the amount dependent upon how much passenger traffic travels through that landing zone. Larger transport with fuel-efficient engine upgrades and finely honed crews focus on the central traffic hubs, driving the ticket prices down to the point that a player will need considerable experience in an advanced ship in order to profitably compete. Smaller and first-time operators tend to therefore stick to those landing zones that don't have as much passenger traffic. Those locals will take a bit longer to sell out a flight. There will be little demand for the long-distance flights that are often most profitable, and most of the travelers will only be interested in basic low-cost fares rather than in cutting-edge comfort. However, there will also be considerably less competition, and thus better profit margins for less experienced operators utilizing less efficient ships. Passenger transport requires a specialized type of ship, such as the Starliner, which is being offered today in concept sale. There are 4 classes of comfort: coach, business class, first class, and luxury class, but many ships support only 1 or 2 of these. Fuel capacity, consumable storage capacity, and engine efficiency are the primary determinants as to whether a given ship is classified as short or long range. The Starliner is the top of the line, a long-range luxury class transport ship equipped with a prodigious seating capacity, fuel-efficient engines, and advanced quantum stabilizer to minimize occurrences of vibration-induced nausea, private sleeping cabins, and much more to remove all of the discomfort from an extended voyage. Once a compatible ship and a license to operate have been obtained, a player need only park on a public landing pad to initiate a connection to the local flight schedule computer in order to get a sense of passenger traffic at the location. Desired destinations are shown in order of popularity, with the number of passengers that have traveled to that local over the last day and the average prices they paid for each ticket class available as a means of reference. Players may select a destination for their flight, set the price for each ticket class that they offer, and specify a departure and estimated arrival time. The flight can then be published, at which point travelers can see the flight and begin to purchase tickets. Depending upon the amount of passenger traffic seeking to travel to that location, the prices that you set, your departure time and flight duration, the number of competing flights, and your reputation, travelers may begin to exit customs and board your ship in a trickle or a flood. The ship's pilot receives real-time feedback as to how many tickets have been sold out of the available inventory, and may change the price of unsold tickets at any time. The pilot may terminate the ticket offering prematurely, but may not modify the departure or arrival times without canceling the flight entirely, which would not be well received by those passengers that had already purchased a ticket. No additional tickets will be sold beyond the scheduled departure time. The real work begins once the pilot has made the decision to depart and continues non-stop until the passengers have been deposited at their desired destination. Reputation. To transport another character is to have them place their trust in you, and as such, your most important business asset is your reputation. Allow that to be sullied and it will be a long, hard road to regain the community's trust and business. Reputation directly impacts 2 things: whether your license to operate is temporarily revoked or not, and how much of a discount you must suffer or premium you may enjoy when competing against others and offering an otherwise identical level of service. Reputation is measured via how well travelers are being safely delivered to their destination, and the overall level of satisfaction of those players with the flight experience. While the former is very straightforward, the latter involves the evaluation of many different components. Every passenger keeps track of their flight experience in a number of different ways, and their ticket class directly impacts how forgiving they are in their evaluation. While the higher fares that can be charged for first class may seem very appealing, adequately dealing with the increased difficulty of satisfying a more demanding clientele will require much more than simply the one-time purchase of a ship offering the desired seating comfort and amenities. Travelers that purchase the higher tier seating classes expect superior service, higher quality food and drink, a greater selection of entertainment offerings, prompt medical treatment, and better access to shipboard facilities. How well these expectations are met will ultimately determine how a player's reputation in the passenger transportation field evolves over time. ICES. ICES, an acronym for Information, Communication, and Entertainment System, is the computer centerpiece of a passenger's flight. It allows them to do things like order food and drinks and engage in various forms of entertainment. Every seat on a passenger transport flight is equipped with a holographic projector in the ceiling above, and to the front that is tied to an ICES blade in the hardware room at the back of every ship. These devices will on occasion fail, and in such cases it is of paramount importance to quickly resolve the problem given how prominently it factors into a passenger's enjoyment of a flight. ICES blades may fail for a variety of reasons, and each requires a specific procedure to resolve. Burned out units are simply ejected and replaced with another, assuming that that player had the foresight to restock their ship prior to departure. Excessive radio interference may prevent a solid communications data link from being established, which can in turn be addressed via a player quickly matching a set of binary filters to a hexadecimal status code before the interfering frequency and offsetting status code change. Recalibration of a misaligned audio processor can be accomplished via pressing a sequence of 8 buttons associated with the musical notes to match a test melody whose length is dictated by the extent of the failure. Carefully soldering a loose connection while ensuring that the main circuit board isn't damaged in the process can remedy contact failures. The Mixmaster. One of the more common service requests is for mixed drink. Passengers key in their code through ICES, which immediately transmit that information to the Mixmaster associated with that particular section. The Mixmaster is connected to 8 different beverages and has a rotating set of nozzles. Pressing one of the 8 associated buttons causes the corresponding beverage to dispense until the button is released. Alongside the seat of the passenger that ordered the drink and the time remaining before a reputational penalty starts to accrue is the formula for the desired concoction. A formula such as 1148 would indicate that 2 parts beverage 1, 1 part beverage 4, and 1 part beverage 8 are required. The quality of the drink displayed on the Mixmaster is determined by how accurately the portions were allocated. If the player isn't happy with the quality of the drink, they can simply press a key to discard it and start anew. But ships carry a limited supply of beverages, so this tactic should be used sparingly. Upon acceptance of a drink, it is moved onto a conveyor belt on the side. Thus, players can prepare multiple drinks in a row and then move to deliver them. Or, one player can mix the drinks and another can focus on getting them to where they belong. While a passenger in coach would be fairly forgiving with regard to slow delivery times and poor mixture quality, travelers in business class and up would expect much more, and repeatedly disappointing them would have an adverse effect on their opinion of the flight and ultimately the player's reputation. Customization and upgrades. Passenger transport ships support a considerable number of potential upgrades, including more fuel-efficient engines, larger fuel tanks, additional storage space for consumable and spare parts, quantum stabilizers that can reduce the potential for inducing nausea in sensitive passengers when traveling at extreme rates of speed, and other things of a more traditional upgrade nature. Many aspects of the customization process, however, are much more subtle in nature and will require more time and effort on the part of the player than simply opening their checkbook. The Mixmaster, for example, accesses an array of beverages to formulate its drinks, but the quality of each individual component is dependent upon its source. Restock your supply at a city known more for industrial manufacturing than fine liquors, and more discerning passengers will certainly notice, regardless of whether you proportioned everything out perfectly, and take that into account when determining their overall level of satisfaction with your flight, which will in turn affect your reputation. Go the extra mile and purchase your liquors off an obscure moon off the beaten path, which might take a bit longer and cost a bit more, and you'll find that it's a bit easier to maintain a sterling reputation given how ecstatic your passengers will be at the high quality drinks you're serving in flight. Movies are even more distinctive. Every passenger transport has a movie bank in its hardware room, next to the ISIS blades, that can store a fixed number of movies and that makes them available to passengers via their ISIS projector. Movies are classified as either classic or modern, and all have a popularity rating that denotes how attractive they are to travelers as an entertainment option. The popularity of a modern movie declines over time, so the reliance upon them means continually seeking out newer releases and updating your library. Classic movies retain their popularity in perpetuity, but finding one that's extremely popular is much more difficult. Passengers consider the total popularity value of a movie library, as well as the percentage of the flight for which they had access to it, as a malfunctioning ISIS device can completely eradicate the benefits of a solid movie library when calculating how pleased they were with the overall level of entertainment options on the flight. Medical diagnosis and treatment. One of the most challenging areas of passenger transport is in dealing with illness. There are a wide variety of potential maladies that can befall a passenger, and each has its own particular set of symptoms. Careful monitoring of a passenger's behavior to ascertain whether a cough is accompanied by severe chest pains and shortness of breath, whether a migraine is accompanied by aversion to light, whether a sore neck is accompanied by itching, provide important clues as to the cause of the affliction. Because symptoms will only gradually reveal themselves over a period of time, the best players will need to become adept at keeping an eye on a suspect passenger or two while counting to fulfill their other responsibilities. An onboard computer allows symptoms to be input and compatible illnesses to be identified, but faster diagnosis by learning the telltale signs of at least the most common diseases is imperative for those looking to achieve a superlative reputation by dealing with such situations as quickly as possible. Every passenger transport is equipped with at least one medical supply cabinet that contains some basic diagnostic equipment that may be of use in determining the cause of some ailments. It also contains a number of different treatments, one of which address or at least alleviate every illness that might be encountered. Care must be taken, however, as prescription of the wrong medicine to a passenger can make the situation worse or even cause death. Illnesses may transmit their effects throughout a cabin via two basic mechanisms: fear and contagion. Fear represents the concern and worry that a healthy passenger near another that appears sick would experience, and its effects are directly proportional to the intensity of the visible symptoms. Fearful passengers will frequently turn and look towards the traveler that concerns them, and their experience will continue to impart a penalty to the ship owner's reputation for as long as that situation persists. Contagion, on the other hand, represents the actual spread of the disease, and is only applicable to some maladies. Slow or incorrect diagnosis of a serious issue can quickly spiral out of control, creating a cabin full of concerned passengers, or worse, a full-blown epidemic that will result in a player's passenger transport license being suspended for a period of time. Flight attendants. Passenger transport ships come in a wide variety of configurations, with two primary differentiating factors being the ticket classes supported and the number of seats. A single experienced player can likely handle a ship with 20 to 30 seats by themselves, but if they want to graduate to the larger and more efficient ships that dominate the busiest and most profitable routes, they're going to need some help if they wish to keep their reputation intact. Towards this end, players may always invite their friends along a flight to assist, deciding amongst themselves how to best split up the various responsibilities. At some point though, most players will seek to supplement their operation with one or more non-player characters, if only to allow the player focus on those tasks that they find most interesting or where they truly excel. This can be done via traveling to one of those recruiting stations that populate larger cities. These businesses contain profile information on a large number of job applicants and can sort their personal database according to the desired job. Every applicant has their own unique mix of skill and knowledge, with more capable stewards and stewardesses commanding a higher monthly wage. Once hired, a flight attendant remains as the employee and on the payroll of a player until they are dismissed. They remain constrained to the city in which they were hired until transported elsewhere by the player, and can be summoned to a player's ship at any time prior to departure. They can be directed to focus on only a particular part of a ship, and if so desired, only focus on certain aspects of the job. Once assigned to an area, they automatically begin moving to address the demands of passengers. Touching down. Upon arrival at the intended destination, the pilot must give passengers an all-clear signal from the cockpit in order for them to begin exiting the ship. Immediately upon departing, each passenger will determine how satisfied they were with the overall trip and therefore how the reputation of the ship's owner should be affected. A pilot may force passengers off their ship prematurely at any public landing zone, but in such cases passengers will ignore any experience that they had while on board and instead contribute to the lowest possible satisfaction rating. For larger transport, 1 or 2 premature ejections can easily cause a license to be suspended. Once all the passengers have exited the ship, the pilot is free to submit a new flight plan to the flight schedule computer. That system also allows for basic transport supplies, food, beverages, medicine, surplus ISIS units, etc. to be purchased and loaded into your hold while you wait on the tarmac. Within minutes of touching down, then you can again be prepped for departure. That's life as a passenger transporter, always in motion. Man, I think that may be the longest post I have read so far. I have to sit back and check, but after reading this whole thing, because I'm gonna be honest, I probably wouldn't have read this if I wasn't doing this for you guys, but after reading this, I definitely am looking forward to the passenger transport, because at first I wasn't interested. Now I'm actually considering it because it actually seems like one of the most funnest things to do in the game, and I really like how the government regulates this, and you have to have a proper license for this, and you got to keep renewing it, because one, there's a lot of maniacs out there, and ain't no telling if you have anybody do stuff like this, they may fill a ship up and have some hostages or putting like a crazy ransom on people's heads, and you got to pay that amount to get them back. So that's going to cut some of that down, and also it's going to take players with a lot of skill to maintain that license. So it may be a small market where you can get a lot of money off of this, and only a few people could probably do it. So ain't no telling. I'm real curious on how that's going to work out. I would also like to see this license system kind of integrated with like repair ships or like rescue ships also, because I don't want just anybody rescuing me or anybody coming to tow my ship, because ain't no telling what those dudes are going to do. So if they're under a license, that's going to chop down a lot of the bullshit. And like I said, if they do go against that, I know that the government's going to come down on them, and they're going to come get them a bounties and all that crazy stuff on them. So I'm glad that they're introducing this finally into one of the jobs. Now, I do hope some of these jobs that require licenses, that you can do some of these jobs illegally, because that would be real fun. Maybe they got like some type of penalty if they come after you, if they find out, or you get paid less, something along those lines. But I've been sitting back thinking about all the scenarios about transporting passengers, and this just seems so fun. I'm so glad that it's in there. Like, just think if you go AFK for a while and you take a nice little trip, you could have another player take you from across the planet because you don't feel like taking that ride yourself. People will be doing it. I know sometimes with my son, I'm gonna have to take a break away from the keyboard. So like I said, if it's like a 30-minute trip or whatever, bam, I'll pay for that flight. Then I was thinking like the bad scenarios, like say you're flying in the ship and some pirates come attack you guys and hold the ship hostage. I mean, that'd be crazy. Just take everything you guys have and then fly out of there. And then if you're like a high priority target or you're getting chased down, I was thinking like on Star Wars, how I know no one likes the prequels, but on episode 2 when Anakin and Padme had to take the refugee transport because they couldn't use her, you know, personal ship because that attracts too much attention. So they had to take the refugee ship and lay low. So if you're getting chased down, you got a bounty on your head, just think about that. You could take this, lay low in the crowd, and you probably would never even get caught. I mean, that, just thinking about stuff like that just gets me so hyped up for this. And all the jobs that they announced and stuff for this job, it seems so much funner to carry passengers than just regular cargo. Because if you think about it, I had to think about it myself, because I was saying that I'm not interested in this, but is just carrying cargo going to be fun? I mean, I know they detailed it and they had a nice report on it. But it seems like carrying these passengers seem a lot more fun and interactive, and it seems less of a risk than like regular cargo, because I know cargo runs are always going to constantly get hit back and forth. But I'm looking at some of the scenarios for passenger. You may have less trouble taking passengers instead of, like I said, regular cargo, minerals, whatever it may be. So I am taking that in consideration. With that said, I may get the Starliner after all, but I would like to know, will there be smaller ships that could do this type of transportation? Because in the real world, we have like the Learjets that could carry about maybe 12 to 20 people, and those are very expensive planes to take in the real world. So I would like to have a ship that's equivalent to a Learjet. If you guys never heard of it, look it up. They're pretty cool. So if we could get small ships that can do that and charge a lot of money, I think that would be real cool for the gameplay. Probably wouldn't be as many jobs, but they'll be quicker and more accessible than hopping on an 890 or hopping on the Starliner. But what do you guys think of this gameplay? I love it, this type of gameplay style. I'm hooked on it. They got me convinced. But you guys have a blessed day, and one more thing, Star Citizen for life.